Hi, Film Medics. Welcome to the show. Today we have a very special guest. We have Ryan McKee. He's the co-founder of EverStar Entertainment and an award-winning producer. And he oversees a large film development slate and manages the business affairs. So let's welcome Ryan McKee to the show. Hi, Ryan.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Can you let everyone know where we are recording with you today from?
I am actually in the Palm Springs area, so a couple of hours east of LA, and summer is hitting this week. So we're actually going to start getting up to the 110 and above temperatures. But a lot of people, flee the desert and they hate that heat, but we love it. And it's the best time to swim, when you jump in the pool in the evening and you get out and it just air dry and yeah, so we enjoy it. And then if it gets too much, like sometimes by July, August, it does start to kind of wear on you mentally. So we'll head up to the mountains or we'll head to the beach. But yeah, anyway, so I'm out here in Palm Springs and that's just loving it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And are you able to work then by by Zoom, or are you working remote?
Yeah, so because really the LA COVID restrictions, what was it, January, February, when they finally started lifting. So it's only been the last few months that I've been able to get back into LA now for events and live events and, meetings with people. So it's become so normal with just Zoom calls and phone stuff that it's great to see everybody again. But everybody that I'm talking to, everybody in the business, they've all moved out to the boonies or somewhere, and they're all doing remote too. So it's just really been funny, talking to so many people, and nobody's even in LA anymore. So, but now we're all starting to come back in and hooked up for coffees and lunches and stuff. So
yeah, and it does help with that, like, oh my gosh, $8 and $10 gas that's going on, right?
Yeah, so now it's definitely one of those things where you sit there and you really evaluate and go, okay, if I'm going to drive in, I'm not going to actually just be there for a meeting. I'm going to be there for a day or two and, crash overnight somewhere or whatever. So I try to really make the most of that time when I'm in LA, instead of just hopping in the car and going and doing a 4 or 5 hour drive there and back. It's got to be a pretty important meeting for that.
Yeah. And I was just like, wow, 110, because I have a husky. And when I walk her down the street, people are like, oh, how can you have a husky in this temperature? And I'm like, okay, I know my dog. I know where she comes from, and they obviously don't know. In Siberia, the temperature is 110 in summer, and her fur is for a cooling system. So but you're really in 110. Thank goodness you got a pool, right?
Yeah, it really helps. It really helped us during COVID too, because everybody else, you're feeling that just congestion in the big city and stuff. And out here where we were at, it was really much more relaxed, and you had the pool, and we felt like we could play more. So it psychologically for the kids and everybody, it just was a better environment for us. But yeah, you don't do a whole lot during the day. You definitely don't walk the dogs on the asphalt and stuff when it's hot outside. You wait till the sun goes down and it cools off. So we just kind of change our rhythm up for about 3 or 4 months. And then the rest of the year, it's 75, 80 degrees for nine months of the year. So we love it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And so I want to ask, where did you grow up, Ryan? Did you grow up in LA or?
Well, I grew up in the Midwest. I was born in Missouri, grew up in Indiana, went to high school there, and then went to college, met my wife, and then we settled on the West Coast up in Washington State, north of Seattle, and lived up there for about 15 years or so. And then headed down to LA, and I had done some stuff up in the Seattle market for film, and then eventually made our way down to Los Angeles. But yeah, growing up, it was all Midwest. So I have those Indiana roots. We lived all around the state. My dad was a pastor, and he bounced around quite a bit, starting churches and working for people, and churches would hire him to come in and kind of fix them up and stuff. So we moved a lot. People thought I was a military kid for a long time, because it was very similar to that. We moved something like 40 times before I was 20 years old. It was just crazy.
Oh, wow. That sounds like a story. I was like 20 times, because my dad was in the Navy. We moved around a lot. We moved international.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was born in Italy.
My son's in Italy. He's there in the Navy right now at Naples. So.
Are you serious? He's in the Navy, Naples. That's where, yes, Navy, Naples, Italy. I was born in Naples, Italy. My dad was in the Navy.
That's too funny.
Wow, congratulations, that's beautiful. Oh,
Thanks.
he
Thanks.
might get
Yeah,
married
it's
out
an
there.
exciting area.
Is he just having the best food and the best time of his life?
Well, because COVID, they're finally lifted in the last 6 months or so. He's just now started to get out, and he went to Rome. Um, where else? Milan. He tried to go to Venice, and yeah. So I mean, he's trying to get out and see some of it before he leaves here in the next couple of months. But yeah, it's been most of the time he was stuck on base, sort of stuck inside, dealing with all the COVID restrictions. So it was pretty frustrating not being able to get out and see anything.
Yeah, and speaking of that, because when I started my children's podcast, Enchanting Book Readings, my first ranking was in Italy, a very high ranking, and I knew the kids needed me because they you couldn't even a lot of them don't even have a balcony or a backyard, and the cops and the police wouldn't even let the people go downstairs and sit on a bench, even if they were so
Mm.
they were really they had a tough time, and I was really happy my mom was visiting my sister in Florida because she's got a pool and a beach, right? And so I go, Mom, thank God that like you were stuck in Florida because they couldn't fly back. So I go, just think if you were in Italy, you'd have it really. So that's what I think. Like I was really motivated for the kids podcast, and I only had like a few stories on there. I didn't even have a lot, but it taught me to write. It taught me to write every week and make those stories for kids. And now I think Ukraine, Russia needs stories for their children because I don't think they are able to watch anything. So these stories are so important for people going through stuff because I'm only in English and art is entertaining and can be healing as well. And so I want to
Oh
ask
yeah.
you, so growing up, what was one of your favorite films? Was it more religious based, or you're like, oh, I'm not watching religion, I'm gonna just have fun and watch something good on the movies?
Now, even when I grew up in the religious community, I mean, we always made fun of those kind of movies. So I mean, there's people that like them, and that's fine. There's a lot of entertainment out there for everybody. But growing up, we never really watched that kind of stuff. It wasn't. I was just into regular movies. Um, I was always a kid that was, I was definitely impacted by the sort of Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, 1980s, all of the blockbuster films. They had a huge impact on me. I was a big time. I just got lost in the fantasy of it. Really up until middle school, I would always often dress up, run around my neighborhood. Um, got teased a lot by a lot of my peers just because I was so into the world of make believe. And so Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Indiana Jones series, had a really big impact on me as a kid. I still have a bullwhip and a fedora and all that stuff that I used to wear when I was 10, 11, 12. Obviously, all of the Star Wars stuff, but just the Back to the Future movies, everything like that. And so growing up that way, and for me, it was experiencing all those movies on VHS and Betamax and all that. So it really wasn't until I got older and could afford to really go to the theater and stuff that I could enjoy that kind of theater experience. But for me, it was mostly sitting at home and watching those movies 100 times and memorizing all the lines and watching all the little details. I remember one time I was probably 11 or 12 and I had dressed up in my Indiana Jones outfit and I had it down to just all these specific details and costumes and all that stuff. And my aunt one time was like, man, you would make a really good director or something like that. And it was one of those things where I thought, I wonder why. She's like, you just have an eye for those details like that. So, yeah, I actually was a musician. I was a composer, conductor. That's really where I started. And then eventually kind of made my way over to film production. But those films were the ones that really kind of caught me up in that whole world.
Yeah, like Goonie, E.T., like you said,
Oh
like
yeah.
I actually did a spoof of Indiana Jones. It was Independent Jones and the superhero's quest for the Holy Ball. So he was spoofing
Nice.
independent filmmakers, how hard it is to make a film.
Oh yeah.
And I had all
Yeah.
the aging superheroes. I had Liquid Man because Aquaman turned into liquid. I had Batty Man because he's old and crazy. And Wonder Woman was now with Anheimer's. She was Wondering Woman. And Spider Man was Cobweb Man. And it was just really fun. And I did really well. I was top 50 director in Project Greenlight. So yeah, we have the love for that. So how did
Yeah.
you? So you came from Missouri, so you like this like small Midwest town, and then
Yeah.
you were a musician and composer. That's fantastic. Like, do you still do a little bit of the music or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I mean, I left most of it behind from a career standpoint. I had worked in churches for a long time, done music directing and things like that with a lot of those. I had done choral music. I had done orchestra stuff, local theaters, and so I did a lot of arranging for orchestras and choirs, and really enjoyed it and loved it, but found myself, because we were that primarily was what I was doing when we lived in Washington State. And the market up there was just much smaller, much more difficult. There's ways to make a living as a musician, but boy, you've got to really hustle and work at it. So, I had a wife, I had kids, and I'd been kind of an entrepreneur. I'd had different businesses over the years, and had gotten connected with somebody. We developed a TV pilot. I'd had this idea for a show, and during that whole process, just realized, wow, I feel like I've got a kind of a natural ability here in this putting ideas together and putting teams together and hiring people, and it just feels really easy and natural for me. And at that time, I really wasn't still thinking production necessarily, but then when we finally made the move to LA, I had looked at the music area, the sort of the number of composers and the people that were down here in LA, and I thought, at my age, I was in my mid 30s by that point. I've got kids. I don't know that I really have the energy to try to figure out how to pull this off when I have mouths to feed. It's going to be a really hard grind. I could probably do it, but I just don't know that I want to ask them to sacrifice for that. And so I found myself looking for opportunities on the production side, and was able to kind of get into that world. I didn't know anybody when we moved down here. Was just completely on my own, and about a year later was a production manager on a feature film with some big Hollywood stars, and I just hustled my tail off and production assistant and all that stuff and worked my way up. And so, being older, I think helped with some of that too, but I was also motivated to make money because I had a lot of people to feed. But yeah, so that was kind of my switch. I still compose, I still do some things, sit down and play the piano and enjoy that stuff, but it's definitely not anything I'm trying to pursue as a career. But it's fun to be able to turn on the symphony or listen to something. I know what's happening. I understand the music. I went to school for composition. I know the theory. I understand all that world. So that it's very enriching and rewarding. But I don't really have any need to sit down and have to compose my symphony right now. So maybe someday down the road we'll see.
Oh yeah. So tell us how this fantastic journey to EverStar Entertainment. I mean, and you're award-winning producer. So can you share with us that journey a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, so we were in the Seattle area, and I had been in a situation where we had kind of hit this point in our lives where we thought, we want to do the LA thing. We want to go to Hollywood. We sold everything, bought an RV, packed up the kids, and just started driving south on I-5 and said, we'll just have to go figure it out. It's like, let's just see what happens. And, I had a few friends that were down here, kind of connected to the industry, but weren't really in any kind of position to, offer me work or anything like that. But they were all really excited about it. They said, man, what a crazy story of you guys just hopping in the car kind of thing and going for it at 30, what was I, 36, somewhere in there. So 37. It's, I don't recommend it unless you've got a really strong kind of like resolve to pull it off. But yeah, it was a little scary, but
Not
we just kept telling
kind
ourselves,
yeah, it kind of reminded me a little bit, but Little Miss Sunshine, weren't they in the RV going somewhere to bring her to that pageant?
oh, sure,
Right?
sure,
So
right. Well, yeah, I mean, it was one of those things too where we thought, we've got the RV. If we get down there and we just completely, burn out and we can't pull it off, we can always turn this thing around and head back north. Like, we've got it out if this thing doesn't work. But we came down here and it became kind of this great summer vacation with the kids, and we sort of settled into the area, and we wanted the RV so we could drive around and learn LA. We didn't know the city at all. And really eventually got connected to some folks out here in the Palm Springs area. I got on with a production company. I started to learn the area, and film projects were coming out here because for so much of the year, you'd have like a lot of the East Coast companies were doing modeling. They bring out like commercials and magazine spreads and that kind of stuff to shoot in Joshua Tree and shoot in other areas here in the desert. And so I was getting connected with a lot of those people, doing location scouting. working with local productions as a producer to help them do, maybe a car commercial or whatever it might be. And so just became really, really well connected out here. And then film productions were coming out here to shoot features and do different things. And so, yeah, I kind of became a go-to person in the area for film production. And from there, wound up kind of been connecting into LA and into that market. And over time, got connected to my co-founder here with EverStar. And he and I were working on another project that we were shopping at the time to Hallmark. And so he and I got to be pretty close friends. And I reached out to him about a year ago and said, I have this idea for a film company. What do you think? And he's like, man, I'd love to do that with you. So the rest is history. It's been fun. We're really excited about where things are going with that right now. So
Are you allowed to share anything in the slate or anything coming out, or even your film at Hallmark? Tell us about those, because like we watch Hallmark, we watch those films.
yeah.
We do.
Yeah, that one. I was not a producer on. I was asked to be a production manager. So the producer on that one, I think that one has sort of changed directions a few times. Hallmark had not really a split, but they had some leadership changes, and some of those people went off to start another channel. And so some of that stuff, there were a lot of projects that were kind of floating out there that sort of stalled out. And so ours was one of those. But anyway, so the stuff that we're working on, we've got a bunch of projects in our development slate. One of the ones that we're doing right now with Paul Shavelson, who was the co-creator of the FX channel, as well as the Crossing Over with John Edwards show. He did that one for years, created that with John, and ran that for a long time. Well, he had this idea. We got connected for a show, and it's just a really funny kind of 8-episode. It's about a kind of a conspiracy theory radio host who's sort of dealing with his own mental health issues. But it's just done in a way that's really, really funny. And so we're working on that show with him. But one of the things we're trying to do with that show is add this NFT, thing that people are becoming more aware of right now. And so we've sort of seen an opportunity. And about 6 months ago, we recognized that something was happening with this NFT thing. And so we're trying to incorporate that in as part of our film financing sort of marketing plan with our company. And this project that we're doing is a big part of sort of launching that part of the business. So we're really excited about it. It's a constantly evolving industry right now. I mean, it seems like every week is like 6 months in a normal industry. So
Yeah. So okay, so there's a new sci-fi channel, but you have a comedy, right?
correct.
So is it a sci-fi comedy or
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, it's got this kind of conspiracy theory sort of bent to it. The character in the show is a radio host.
Oh,
And
a
so
girl, a girl or guy?
right now it's a guy. We've talked about possibly changing that up, but there's a reason why we kind of picked a guy. But yeah, so he's just sort of going through some of his own personal crisis and issues. And so we're just exploring this mental health kind of thing that he's dealing with. I can't give too much away because some of those things are still being ironed out as far as how we want this to get shaped. But it's done in a really interesting, really funny way. And so we've read, we read scripts constantly, looking at projects all the time. And this one really excited us because we felt like, boy, there's a lot of opportunity here to do something really fun. So
Yeah. And do you want to share a little bit anything about real quick, let's see, about the NFTs sort of? Do you want to talk about a little bit about that?
well, the thing that's exciting about the NFT piece is it's more than just this cryptocurrency token non-fungible thing that there's all these sort of technical babble stuff that people throw around. But the exciting part about it is that it's like crowdfunding, got kind of taken to that next level where fans can participate in a production in a not just sort of passive role. They can involve themselves really in an active role. They can feel a sense of ownership because they're investing in something that's, even though it's digital, it has an asset to it. It has utilities attached to it. There are things that, you can essentially sell that now on a secondary market. You can trade it almost like a baseball card. So it has something to it if I own this thing for this project that we're doing called Wingding, and I have an NFT that's attached to it, and maybe there's a bunch of benefits like behind the scenes footage, or I get to go to the red carpet premiere or whatever. It's like my membership pass at Costco kind of thing. I get access to certain benefits by having this NFT. Well, you can also, if you want to, down the road, that thing may have value to it. You could sell it and make money, because hopefully the value of that thing goes up over time, because other people want access. They want to buy that thing, and there's only a limited number of them. So things like that get really, really interesting for artists and creators, because then it's not the traditional Hollywood model is all about mass marketing, right? It's about, we go raise money, we make a project, and then we put it out to as many eyeballs as we possibly can to try to make as much money back as we possibly can. And everybody's got their finger, in the pie, and they're all trying to take a stake. And doing this thing with the NFT really opens up the opportunity to say, I don't need to sell 100 million, whatever it is, when this thing comes out in the theater. I can actually make my money on this film up front before we ever even, quote unquote, sell it or market it out to the general public. So the fans can actually help cover the cost of this thing from the very beginning. So it's going to potentially, if it unfolds kind of the way people see, it could really change the dynamic of how projects get made, and how artists then have more control over those projects. Because you've got a community that say, hey, we want you to put whoever you want in this thing. You want to put a female lead, you have a director that you really, really like, and maybe a studio would have said, no, we don't want you to hire that person, we want you to hire this actor or this person instead. The fans are paying for the movie. So, the creators can do whatever they want. So it's a really exciting time.
That's really cool. So, we're allowed to share your comedy TV series will be Wingding, and it will be streaming on this new sci-fi channel. Are you? Can you share the name of it so they can How do they keep up with you and find where your projects are going to be released or streaming it?
Well, right now we have our EverStar Entertainment website. We're developing a lot of the other materials for the Wingding show. And so we'll have all those kinds of things on the site, and people can track stuff there. Obviously, all the social media channels, and as things unfold. I mean, we all know with development, things change. So it's possible, who knows, 6 months from now, we may change the title of the show. We may do something completely different. But right now, the plan is kind of moving forward in that direction. But yeah, so it's the distribution at some point would either be probably a streaming platform, or what we've even explored are things, and we may not do it necessarily with this show, but one of the NFT options is that people can say, hey, again, I've already paid for the movie up front. Maybe I only want to make it available to people that own an NFT. So maybe there's 5,000 people that purchased an NFT on this thing, and they're the only ones that ever get to see it. I don't even need it to go to some studio or some theater or some streaming platform. I can make this available as a private link for people to download and watch it just themselves. So we'll see. That we're open to the idea of mass appeal. We want as many people to kind of onboard into this process as possible. But who knows? We may experiment and try something different.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. And so you're mainly focused on producing, right? Is that yeah? And then so do you write too? Or you have pitches, because it says you're open to giving a voice to filmmakers who normally don't have that voice, right?
Yeah, so we've got a number of projects in our slate. The ones that really excite us and attract us are the ones that are from other kinds of writers. I'm a middle-aged white guy, right? So there have been a lot of movies made about guys like me, by guys like me. I love the movie making process. I love art. I love artists. And so we're working really, really hard, even within our company, as the people that we're hiring, the projects that we're looking at, to say, okay, how can we use the platform that we've got, and the things that we're interested in? How can we create opportunity for all these other voices, females, people of color, different demographics, whatever, to allow them to be able to have the resources and the team around them to go make the projects that they want. And part of what we're trying to do with the NFT piece is it's extremely hard to launch an NFT and be successful at it. So our hope we'll see what happens, is to build that community, um, get these NFT, projects launched, and be able to reach out then to, as filmmakers approach us and say, hey, well, I would really like to do this. And we can say, well, let us work with you. Let us help you. We can take it out there to the community. We can launch an NFT around this thing, and you can make your movie how you want to make it. And we're here to support you. That's really our hope, and it's kind of our long-term vision, so that it's not a thing of where we're always having to then go to a studio or somebody else or a distributor or whatever to try to raise funds in that sort of traditional way, to where somebody else then now gets to have their voice in the process. We can let the creator and that filmmaker really have the final say on how that thing gets made.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, and so and you're part you have a partner. Is that you want to share? It's like,
Clayton Giltner.
and he's been on the podcast.
Just,
He was one of the first
yeah,
people that came on. I think my first year he came on. I had like,
Clay's a
yeah,
great guy.
yeah, yeah. And then he's like, oh, he directs at the actor studio. And I have a call back. He goes, you got to come back to that. And I go, yeah, because like I think creators like we these days they're multi hyphen, like acting, writing, directing, producing, voiceover. Because like and COVID like really you streamline, like you're by yourself. So a lot of people were so creative and actually made films on Zoom. I had some guests in here that actually made feature films from their Zooms with like nobody, not on location, just from the Zoom. So people got so creative. They made films from their Zoom meetings. And a lot of people did podcasts or YouTube, TikToks, Instagram. And it's interesting to see that. And so, yeah. And congratulations on your company, EverStar Entertainment, and your development deal with the Sci-Fi Channel. That's amazing. And everyone loves sci-fi, from Star Wars to Star Trek to pretty soon Wingding. It sounds awesome. I like it. I like it. It sounds amazing.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see where it lands. We're excited about the project, and yeah, I agree with you though. I mean, in terms of from a creativity standpoint, creative people want to make stuff. It's it's hard. I am not a big believer in the idea of sort of specialization. I think definitely in Hollywood, you kind of have to pick a lane, because people have a really hard time with somebody who says, I can do this and this and this and this and this and this, especially when they're completely unrelated. But for like an actor or a producer or a writer, there's lots of things you can write. There's lots of things you can produce or act in. It's hard to be, an electrician and a costumer and a director, and like that kind of thing gets tough for people to understand who you are. Some guys love to bounce around, but I think within certain fields, you definitely can explore a lot of different methods for creativity. So I'm definitely a big believer in the idea of, if you are an actor or you are a writer or whatever, man, just write as much stuff as you can and put as much stuff out there, because it's part of the process. You don't have to just write a certain kind of, young adult novel. Or you could, and you could be great at that. And if you love it, go for it. But what's wrong with sci-fi, or what's wrong with podcasting, or what's wrong with all these other things? Go for it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, because it's so amazing. So I just want to say, wow. So Ryan McKee, co-founder of EverStar Entertainment, an award-winning producer, and he's a co-founder of EverStar Entertainment, and just and you're also director of the business affairs. So amazing to have you on the show today, and we're so excited to hear more. Maybe we have to come. You'll have to come back and update us on Wingding and your project, so that the audience can go check out what's coming out from your company.
love to. I'd love to keep you posted.
Yeah. Thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show.
Of course, my pleasure.
And thank you for listening, everybody. Till next week, have a great week. And if you'd like to download the podcast, give us 5-star reviews. And if you'd like to support the podcast, buy me coffee, Sneakies, or PayPal anonymous content. And want to thank our wonderful guests today. And until next week, enjoy the podcast.